What is going on, everybody? It is another Pop Culture Crisis movie review for Gran Turismo. My name is Brett. I am here with my co-host of the podcast. Would you introduce yourself?
Hi, Crisis Actors. It's Mary, and we're also joined by Sarah, who watched this movie with us.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Guys, this was a movie that I've been waiting for quite a while because the release date for this movie got changed, I think, twice. And I saw several reviews for it. I broke my promise to myself where normally I don't watch reviews before I go see a movie, but they got me more excited for it. This is not a movie about the video game Gran Turismo. This is a movie about a young man named Jan Mardenborough, who was the first winner of the Gran Turismo Academy, which is like a live action academy where they take people who played the Gran Turismo sim video game and put them on the track and had them compete for a chance to actually race for Nissan. And right off the bat, there are 3 or 4 main actors in here. We've got Orlando Bloom as Danny Moore, who is the one who sold the idea of this entire process to Nissan. Mm-hmm. We've got David Arbor as Jack Salter, who is the head, who's like the chief engineer for the company. He has to be persuaded by Orlando Bloom's character to come work for him. And we have Archie Madekwe as Jan Mardenborough, who is, of course, the winner of the first Gran Turismo Academy.
It's Jan,
is
right?
it?
Yeah,
Jan. Did I say Jan? Yeah. But I heard people say both in the movie. Like, they might have been doing it. Maybe the American guy said it wrong on purpose because he's a dick. That's very Jan Mardenborough. But he is the winner of the first Gran Turismo Academy. And, of course, this is really a movie about him. This is his life story. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask your guys' opinions. Oh, no. Sorry. His dad is played by Jimon Hansu, and his mom is played by Ginger Spice. Holy crap, I'm still processing that right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask your guys' opinions right off the bat. What'd you think of it?
I feel like I was tricked into watching a 2-hour and 15-minute long advertisement for Sony and Sony products and Gran Turismo, the video game.
There is one point in this movie where that's painfully obvious. So in this movie,
yes.
The character of Jack Salter, which, by the way, David Arbor is the best part of this movie.
No, David Arbor, all of his projects, was the best part of it. But I almost felt like, dude, you made a big mistake by being part of this movie.
No, I think he elevated the material. But the point I'm making is so his character carries around a Walkman to listen to music on
yes.
the whole movie. And of course, there's this moment where Jan buys him an MP3 player. He buys him a Sony MP3 player in 2015. Sorry, that's never happened in the history of mankind.
This really heartfelt moment where you're just getting advertised a Walkman.
Just buy him an iPod. If that story's real, he bought him an iPod. He did not buy.
Also, this whole movie felt like trailer moments, especially with the way that the music swelled in certain parts, and like the way all the lines could have been in a trailer.
Yes.
Like literally all of them. Mm-hmm. And I honestly considered walking out. It was so bad. Like, particularly the first 45 minutes. It was just like
you two both agreed on that.
Incredibly cheesy.
They did not like, especially you didn't like the first 45 minutes, which is the point of this part is look, they don't lean in too heavily to the fact that this kid, he's a gamer. He doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. Oh, look, there's the GTA Academy. If this movie had been made 15 years ago, they would have leaned way harder into that aspect of it.
Yes. Well, a lot of the early critic reviews were saying that this movie falls into the video game movie stereotypes and gamer stereotypes.
I didn't think it was that bad.
Hard.
Once you get through that part, it's mostly about him trying to be accepted within the racing world.
Well, Sarah, what's your take here?
Yeah, well, I think that's the audience that they're, selling to. It is for young boys that play video games, which is kind of what I realized after I watched the movie, because I was with you. I would have never considered walking out of a movie. Yeah. And I was like, it's just, it wasn't hidden. Like, there wasn't really a beginning and a middle. It just felt like it started. But other than that, it was entertaining for what it was to me.
It started awkwardly.
I didn't care
know how
about
to start it.
any of the characters.
I loved Jack Salter. Look, I want that guy to get all the jobs.
I like David Arbor. I don't care about his character, though.
I do think that Jan Mardenborough, like the character of Jan Mardenborough, does fine, but it really feels more like David Arbor's movie. Like whenever he's on screen, he elevates the material in a way. Yeah. And the young actor doesn't really like he's good.
I just see David Arbor as an actor deserving of being in a better movie than this.
Yeah,
and
he saved that movie.
Yeah, and he saved the movie and should have picked a different project to spend his time on, honestly.
I also enjoyed how, look, they couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with the Danny Moore like marketing character. Like he's kind of a dick. He kind of tries to screw Jan at the beginning of the movie.
He wants to allow the American player to win
because he's better in front of the camera
because he's more press friendly, more media trained.
Because the point of the whole academy was that it was supposed to be a publicity stunt for the company. But then the movie, once it gets past that, the movie becomes about Jan trying to fit into this world where he's very clearly an outsider. And me, now again, this is personal preference. I'm a sucker for sports movies and I'm a sucker for underdog sports movies, which is essentially what this movie becomes, like you said, at about the 45-minute mark.
That's when it got good.
Yeah.
That's when it picked up.
I'll tell you how this movie could have been ruined is if they had made the entire thing about him just getting through the academy. Like they would have created fake drama that happened. Like it would have been a story about him and the stupid American kid going back and forth, which they don't really lean into that heavily. And
they ended up being friends by the end of it.
And they didn't really know what to do with the Orlando Bloom with his character. And I ended up liking it because it kind of made him shades of gray. Like he supports the kid, but at the same time, he's very, very honest in his assessment of what's going on.
Like when he gets injured, he's not very sympathetic. He's just wondering, what are we going to say to Nissan about this?
But then as soon as he wakes up, he is very much, he's like, look, it's not your fault, but he's worried about his job.
I like it. It's like they don't make him the evil villain, but it is a reminder that at the end of the day, this whole thing was to make Nissan money. Yeah. And you know,
there was a villain. It was the
this
it was
movie
the kid.
was also to make Nissan money. And
There was a villain in this movie. His name's Nicholas Kappa. That's the name of the character. That's the guy who rides for Kappa, and he's the generic. He looks like if this movie had been in the 80s, he'd been a generic evil Russian. You know, with he's got a high and tight.
He's like
he looks mean.
It's Shysta 9.
And I would say another like they maybe didn't need to include the storyline with the girlfriend, though I actually thought it was kind of sweet.
I was wondering if that was actually part of the real story. I know this is based on a true story, based on facts, but they have a lot of creative liberties with that moniker at the start.
Yeah.
He got the mid girl that he wanted at the end. It was a happy ending. You know, it's fine.
Before all the fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She liked him when he was just a loser gamer in his bedroom.
She's like, oh, your video game. I'm like, how expensive? Like, first of all, like his dad's like what, low middle class? Like, how do you afford that setup in his room? That's what I want to know.
I feel like they live pretty nice in the UK.
He's a former football player.
Yeah, but and also he's also great. I always forget if his name is pronounced Jimon, but Jimon Hansu. He has this scene at the end where he finally reconciles with Jan, and it's really good. And if the actor wasn't as good as he was, it wouldn't have worked. It would have fallen very flat into melodrama.
Well, they kind of. The parents and his brother kind of disappeared for a long time during the movie and didn't address the fact that his parents didn't support him, but then he's traveling around Europe
on private jets
and he's not even having phone calls with them.
That's what I said to her last night. I'm like, is it really? I was like, tough crowd. Like if my dad saw me like flying around on private jets owned by Nissan, I'm guessing he'd been like, wow, you're doing okay there, kid.
So I thought this probably resonated with you because, you know, you competed in athletics as a teenager and you know,
and skating as an adult.
There was not as much legitimacy given to that, especially if like it's your dream and your parents don't understand it. Like I bet that probably resonated more with you.
It's not like the brother's dream was any less ridiculous. You're telling me it's harder to become a pro race car? Okay, maybe it is. Is it harder to become a pro race car driver or a pro football player? They're both really, really like. But
are there rollerblading video games?
There was back in the 90s. or the early 2000s.
I guess it'd be like if you were playing one of those in your bedroom and your dad was like, "Get a real job,
basically,
kid."
Right? Yeah, but again, they didn't make it like so bad that the dad's like all he does is play video games. He's got no direct. Like I didn't even think that they needed to make him like a college, even if it's true. Like just let him graduate college and don't make the story so stereotypical there. Also, why did they have to sneak out of the house if they're both adults? I'm still asking that question.
Steal the car keys.
I get the having to steal.
It's not their house.
Yeah, but they're still. He's back from college. He dropped out of college. He's clearly an adult. I don't feel like his parents are going to make him have a curfew.
They still had to make it relatable to the demographic.
And then there was I'm joking, but I loved this movie. But if it did have one weakness, I think they shortchanged you on the races early on, and then they leaned into the big race at the end. But I would have liked more intense race scenes in the middle point of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I was so disappointed, was because I was expecting a racing movie and the first 45 minutes was just a little too slow. So maybe if I hadn't had that expectation, I wouldn't have been so, I wouldn't have disliked the first half of it as much.
Yeah.
But then again, it picked up again in the end and kind of made up for that.
I think that the young actor who plays Jan, he's got a future, but I think that he was surrounded by very, very talented actors that did a really, really good job of elevating the material. It is absolutely product placement at every turn, and a lot of car porn. Like lots of slow motion shots of cars that people will love to see. And
I don't even know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, like it's I really enjoyed it. And also, like, for me, as somebody who sees most things these days in Hollywood lean towards cynicism, seeing a movie that leaned into like a really, really positive story was nice. And it doesn't have to have an over the top villain. Like we've got they're gonna start a Twitter campaign to stop sim drivers from playing. Like that felt like it wasn't really fleshed out.
I would have liked to see more of like how he handled getting more attention online and like from the press, which they didn't really show much of.
He's kind of just like they didn't really do a whole lot with the fact that he wasn't very media trained, and that was a concern, and then that just kind of goes away.
I like cars.
Yeah, that part was funny. That part was funny to me. Look, I had a lot of fun with this. There was also like there's some really great CGI. The race scenes looked very, very good, and those were very clearly done digitally at a lot of those racetracks. Like you get like a lot of those like sweeping drone shots that go over crowds are not live action,
right?
And they don't look fake most of the time. They look a little bit too polished. I wouldn't have realized if you hadn't
told me.
Yeah, they look a little too polished, but there's no way that they were able to do all that during COVID. I don't think. I believe this movie was produced during COVID. Somebody can fact check me on that if I'm wrong about that. But
imagine that, like you produce your movie during COVID and then release it during the strikes.
Yeah.
That sucks. Bad luck. And there were not many people in the theater with us. There were like 3 other people.
Yeah, that part does bum me out a little bit. Also,
I give them some grace for not being part of a franchise.
Yes, but also the actor that plays Jan Martinborough was actually, his stunt double was the actual real Jan Martinborough.
Yeah, that was kind of cute.
That was cool.
At the end.
So they're saying, former Spice Girls Jerry Halliwell, so the lady who played his mom, is married in real life to Christian Horner, who is a team principal of the Formula One racing team Red Bull. So there could be some nepotism.
Some favoritism there.
There could be a small amount of favoritism in this, but it does shine a light on the fact that we're moving away from the movies that were going to be popular 20 years. Like this movie may not do that well, but in my opinion, it's a decent blueprint that there's going to be movies that are going to speak more to the next generation than the comic book movies that are coming out right now.
I think it should have been on streaming, though. Doesn't feel like a theater release.
I wanted to see it in the theater.
I agree with you, because I went to see it for the nostalgia of like growing up watching my older brother play Gran Turismo 3 on like PlayStation 2. I didn't really need to go to a theater to see it.
See, I want to see this. I want to hear the swelling score on the large speakers. I want to see David Harbour running around the track, screaming into a headset on the big screen.
I don't know. I just don't see this making its money back.
Yeah,
I appreciated that it wasn't woke. It wasn't a story about him overcoming racism or
There was no
that.
story about like, oh, the female gamers that were in the competition were mistreated. Like,
Yeah.
there wasn't
they got
anything
along
like
with everybody.
that.
I would have loved it like they.
There
Like,
was maybe too much camaraderie between them.
the
Not enough cutthroat competition.
But they make their allegory. There's an allegory, right? They're like the regular drivers are gonna hate you because you came from
Yeah.
the sim. I said last night, I was like, it'd been hilarious if he shows up at the track and like the guys who don't like him, like, we don't like your kind here. We don't like you sim kind here. We don't want you here.
But by making it more of a blanket statement, yeah, it's an allegory that anyone can relate to.
Exactly.
You can place your own story on there.
They say that David Harbour's character is not like based on one person, but it's like he's several different people that were turned into that person. So, and the part about the headphones is that's a writing tool. Like where he's got his old school headphones. He loves it.
They said that was true though at the end.
And his like trauma from crashing at Le Mans. or
Okay,
whatever.
that's another thing. The kid. In fact, I left a part out here. I'm shortchanging this kid who played Jan. He did amazing in the scene when he wakes up in the hospital. He did very, very well when he wakes up and finds out what happened from the crash.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
Like he did very, very
Yeah,
like
it got really real.
Yeah, he did better there than I expected. Considering that I felt like the rest of the movie he was fairly one note.
Well, accidentally killed a spectator.
Yeah.
Is that even legal to be sitting on the grass there? Like,
Well, I mean,
I think that's the whole point is that
They
it's
weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, or like a sit at your own risk kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah, they said like that area
And
of
that's
the course has
part
a
of the
name.
real story.
Yes.
That actually happened. That's crazy.
Yeah, you can look up the crash and stuff.
But like they said, that part of the course has a name.
I'm sure there were a lot of people that blamed him because of his, being a sim driver beforehand. They were like, he shouldn't be on the track.
I looked it up and that had happened before, but it hadn't happened since 1999.
Okay.
So I can see why people are kind of like, it could have been because he was a noob, but they also said it was just a freak accident.
Yeah. How would you, okay, so both of you said you would have been better streaming, right?
Yeah.
How would you have fixed it to make it more apt for theater release?
I would have cut out some scenes. I would have made
It should have been like at least a half hour shorter.
Yeah.
Not as slow as it was in the beginning, in the first act.
Make me like care about the characters more in the beginning.
But then they like how do they fix that then? Because the whole
The
point
fact
of the
that this
beginning is how
actor
you're
is
supposed
relatively unknown also wouldn't help for it being in theaters.
Yeah.
David Harbour was great. I expected him to be more of the star of the movie, but I'm kind of surprised that he would take a project like this.
I mean, why not? Like, if you like, maybe you know what it is. Well, like in 20 years, because they have this thing that they do every time, like a big name actor takes a role in a comic book movie, they have to do this stupid thing where they go, "I was gonna turn it down, but then my grandson said, Daddy, Grandpa,
I love comics. You should
have
do
to take it." I'm like, no kid,
Like
that
Jeff
age,
Bezos talking about Rings of Power.
like no kid that your grandson's age has read a comic in like 20 years.
I just think like David Harbour was the best part of Stranger Things too.
yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to keep doing this.
And Violent Night.
He seems like the
And
type of
Violent Night.
person that's like, oh, I just want to expand as an actor and do something I wouldn't
Well, that's
normally
cool.
do or is expected or,
But to me, it was like they asked David Harbour to do it, and they're like, "We'll give you free PlayStations for life." And he's like, "I've got grandkids, I've got kids. I'm gonna take the free PlayStations for life." Also,
Free Walkman
They
for life.
they did the scene where they introduced the guy who created Gran Turismo, and they do the press conference scene. I thought it went well. So so you would have changed some scenes at the beginning and cut stuff out and made it shorter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I probably would have shaved 10 minutes. I don't know where I would have made those cuts, but shaving 10 minutes off of it and getting it to 2 hours would have been good for me. But I don't know where those cuts would have come from. Maybe the scene of him and his girlfriend going around Tokyo.
That's what I was about to
Yeah.
say. The whole love story could have been cut out, or they should have leaned into it more. It felt like it was just sprinkled in there.
It didn't have they didn't give it either enough attention or they gave it too much attention considering how unimportant it was to the story.
Right.
Okay.
But it's nice. He gets the girl at the end.